There are those that would say electric cars are dull to look at, sometimes boring to drive, and not very powerful. And then there's the MG Cyberster. You can get two powertrains in the Cyberster: rear-wheel drive with over 300 brake horsepower, or dual motor with excellent levels of grip for over 500 brake horsepower and a 0 to 60 time, or 100 kilometers an hour, of just barely 3 seconds. It is ferociously quick in a straight line. And the price is actually possibly surprising. It's not cheap, at a smidgen under €70,000 for the rear-wheel drive version, or an extra 5 grand for the huge jump in power and that extra grip from the dual motor setup. And it's fair to say, if you were to take that MG badge off this and stick a Porsche badge or an Audi badge on it, you could probably double the price. There's Ferrari inspired looking headlights, the lower bumper, every smidgen of the car, to me anyway, and I know some people are not too much of a fan of the rear, I just think it's absolutely beautiful. No frunk underneath the car, unfortunately. Brembo's behind these 20-inch rims, which again have a kind of a turbine effect on them. Nothing too detailed of note around the front wing, just this little black insert here, and these low sills along the side of the car, which are finished off by kind of winglets, which have 100th anniversary inscribed on the side. Now that's a nod to MG's British heritage, but as I'm sure you know, MG is now a Chinese-owned company, so really what's left of that Morris badge is a badge, and that's it. So some people are a little bit miffed that they've put a 100th anniversary. I suppose from an MG point of view, they're just thinking of heritage. And that sweeps around this sort of bulbous wing over the rear, the light bar, which has these really sharp arrow inserts, and it's just, as I said multiple times, a good looking set of wheels. Do let me know what your preference is. Do you think from every angle, like me, it's pretty gorgeous, or are you not quite sure on the rear of the car? So we've got a bit of black sweeping around, some red tips on the inserts. They didn't bother doing anything that looks like fake exhaust, which is probably a good thing. Cyberster badge over here, and MG. Also, the diffuser is missing. Well, it's just not there on the car, which doesn't help with wind, even with the side windows up when you have the roof down. Even on a reasonably mild mid-November day, I'm not even wearing a jacket here. There's something about driving this car, whether you've got the top on or the top off, that is a little bit frustrating, and I'll get to that in just a second. So the boot is, it's all right for a roadster. It's not electric. I suppose they're trying to keep weight as much as possible down. There's just a little bit of electrical assistance there. Boot aperture is okay. Couple of storage nets. You'll definitely get a couple of small suitcases in there, no doubt about it, but something like the BMW Z4 and the Porsche Boxster will take more in there. So yeah, it's grand, but look, I was never expecting, and neither should you, a 400-litre boot in a car like this. I do have a bit of a confession to make. So if you watched my video during the summer of my Mazda MX-5, thank you for watching it for starters, it's sold, it's gone. And I've replaced it with something that I've probably always wanted and danced around it for a while. Nearly bought a car from the brand in 2009, was flipped upside down. Here's the photograph. I wasn't driving it. I was waiting for my turn. Wish I had been driving it because it wouldn't have happened. Anyway, I've gone and bought a Porsche 911. And I will do a video on it soon, and I'll give you more details on it. It's obviously not brand new, not earning that much money doing YouTube, but it has helped me in the driving review of this car. So on the one hand, I've got MX-5 experience. On the other hand, I've got 911 experience, and I'm able to pretty well balance how this car fits between those two cars, if at all, when it comes to driving. So cover that in just a few moments. Well covered at this stage, but obviously these doors are a bit of drama. As you can see, if you're too close, they will know you're there, and they still know I'm there, and they still know I'm there. But there's no doubt they add a little bit of drama and theatre to the car, albeit potentially sometimes causing you issues in maybe really tight car parks. That said, I got this car into Terminal 1 in Dublin Airport, and that car park was designed in the 70s, and it's not very big, but the Cyberster still managed to fit and not hit the roof or other cars. As soon as you sit in, you feel roadster-y. Everything wraps around you as you'd expect it to do. The steering wheel feels beautiful, lovely touches on it. The red is great. 3 screens staring at you here. Some of them are blocked with your hands on the steering wheel. And then you have this one down here which controls your climate control and some of the ADAS systems in the car, your sound settings. There's a lot going on. On the one hand you can look at it and go, oh, it's like a computer game. On the other hand you can go, where's that thing again? And then there's a slider bar type thing here that gives you a bit more information. You get a 360 camera which helps with your overview of the car. Couple of drinks holders which are nicely dampened, and you've got an armrest. There is also a bit of storage behind the driver and passenger seat, emergency release buttons for these doors in case you were wondering, they are there, and you can also operate the roof and everything else with the buttons down here. So this has a Bose sound system, a super sport button staring at you to unleash all the power, and it really is all the power. And the seats are heated, and so is the steering wheel, so very welcome on days like today. Couple of techie glitches. I couldn't get the USB-C cable to charge any device with multiple cables. The USB charger port does work fine. There's no wireless charging pad because there's nowhere to put it, and the CarPlay needs to be plugged in. And that's just not good enough for a car of this price, in my opinion, at least. The other thing is that seat sits much lower than this seat because of batteries. There's a 77 kilowatt hour battery in this car, which will give you a range, a real world range in the dual motor of maybe 250, 300 kilometers if you're lucky. As soon as you press it on, you're looking at sort of 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. There is the miles, or kilowatt hours per miles for those of you watching in the UK. So it gets thirsty. But anyway, the battery is the cause for this seat sitting higher than the passenger seat. And when you're trying to be in a roadster, and this is where my MX-5 911 experience comes into play, you want to barely be over that steering wheel. Instead, you're kind of sitting like this, like you're in an SUV, and it just is too high. And it's a real disappointment for me personally, because you just don't feel as at one with the car as you should be. Your hips should be barely touching the sides of the doors, of which there's useless door pockets, and it's just I would go as far as to say it kind of ruins the experience of what should be a brilliant car to sit into and be behind the wheel of. When it comes to charging speeds, Cyberster is okay. On paper they have this nice triple digit figure, but actually in reality I was getting 80 and no more from a 150 kilowatt charger, and I arrived with a 14% state of charge. Now the battery temperature perhaps could have been better, I will say that, and on the plus side the charging curve maintained close to 80 kilowatt, right up to about 62-63% state of charge, and then slowly between that and 80% trickled down to around 68-69 kilowatt. Which was again okay, but it should be faster, and again for the price of the car you do want a bit more, so that was a little bit frustrating also. Plug it in at home and it'll take about 10 hours to charge overnight. So it might be a mid-November's day, but I just thought I have to drive the Cyberster with the roof down. I mean, and I wouldn't do this probably where it's built up, but because I'm in the middle of nowhere I'm okay with it. And I'm very, very grateful for the heated steering wheel and for the heated seats today. So just taking it easy to get to grips with, and I have driven this car at the track in Goodwood during the summer, and I can testify then at really not road legal speeds how much grip the car has, but it's the case today. The roads are a little bit greasy, a little bit damp here in the Dublin Wicklow Mountains. But no matter what you throw at it, it has plenty of grip. That part is not a question. But as I increase the speed a little bit, what you do notice is, and you'll probably see it on the camera, things just get a little bit jittery.
And that's where the biggest problem, I suppose, for me, from a driving perspective, with the Cyberster is. So it's not necessarily that clear where you're pointing the wheels. The steering is quite light. And as you increase the speed and go over less than perfect road surfaces, you're just kind of thrown around a bit. It really needs to be a lot more in control, especially on bends and especially on less than perfect road surfaces, to feel like you can confidently push this car on, because you want to be sure when you're driving a Roadster fast that you're not going to overcook it and end up in a part of the ditch you don't want to be in. With the roof up, there's a lot of noise. Even in traffic, cars going past you. Now, it's only a canvas style roof. It's not a hard top, but I was surprised at that. I would kind of have expected better insulation from the elements in a car this new. Now, the straight line performance is not in question. It is incredibly fast. Even at this speed now, 60 kilometers an hour, it's happy enough, you know. It's still a bit choppy, but it's happy. Increase this more and the weight of the car is just too evident. Popping up and down, and it's twitching left and right, and it's pitching nose when you accelerate hard. Feel the front of the car lift off a little bit. It's not like a seesaw or anything, but it's still there, and they're the things that you don't get. Now, I don't want to bang on about the 911 too much. It is a different car, but it just was a nice car to drive back to back with this week and compare. It weighs quite a bit less. It has nowhere near as much power, and it doesn't have dual motor. So while you might be able to push the 911 more on these kinds of roads, you'd always have in the back of your mind that the back might snap on you. And you don't get that with this car because, as I say, the grip is plentiful. That sharpness that you expect in a Roadster, where it just goes around corners like you don't expect it to, and the MX-5 was an absolute joy at that. Again, it's just too heavy. So if I push onto these roads now that I know very, very well, pick up the speed a bit, good bit of wind noise. There's a couple of Bose fake engine sounds. One is a kind of futuristic thing. The other is a bit more livable with. Actually, I haven't turned it off. But yeah, this is where you now feel the suspension it's just not good enough for a car with this much power and the weight, and it's just struggling too much. And that's where you go, oh God, I'm just easing off here now because I'm not comfortable with how it's behaving. And that's the disappointing part of the car, that the looks are great, the performance straight line is great, the grip is great. The problem is, if your Roadster is truly going to put its money where its mouth is, drive as well as it looks, that handling, that suspension, it just can't be the way it is. And that's the biggest problem for me. You take this car onto a normal driving situation, just cruising into work, going to the shops, driving on motorways. It's perfect. It really is perfect. But it's where it's not so good is when you take it onto these roads, which you're going to want to take your Roadster, and that's where the flaws in the whole thing appear. The other thing, just to touch on it once again, I'm at eye line with the roof. I want to be almost at eye line with the steering wheel. Not an issue for left-hand drive countries, because you'll be able to put the seat on the floor. Now, your passenger will suffer the same problem then, but you're probably going to be driving this car with just you in it more than you will with two people. So I'd rather have the option of being lower on the ground. I'd look at it all day long, but if I wanted to actually go on some decent roads and confidently get that power out, I'm afraid I'll be in something like an S2000, a Boxster, even an old 911. But none of them will be as cheap to run as this. The road tax and the fuel is unbelievably cheap. And on that note, here's my summary. as somewhat practical as much as two-seater sports cars can be. Charging curve leaves a little bit to be desired. The price is all right. I don't know where a one-year-old one of these cars is going to be, and that could be a very nice purchase for someone that doesn't need a whole lot of space and kind of, I suppose, loves posing. It's a great grand tourer car. People will ask you what the hell it is. It will turn heads absolutely everywhere. But with those comparisons that I mentioned at the start of the video, it's just not a true roadster in terms of how it handles. Grip is amazing, but the suspension and the weight of the car does let it down a bit. And if you aren't into ploughing down country lanes at bonkers speeds and you just like cruising around in style, then this will suit you fine. And it'll be an awful lot cheaper to put fuel into it than any of the cars I've mentioned that require petrol. So it's not a black and white, don't know if I'd buy it. It's just, it depends on you. And in terms of looks, it's possibly one of the best looking things on a set of four wheels that you can currently buy. Thank you very much for watching. I'm off to drive home and I'm going to enjoy myself. See you in the next one.